Happy WNBA Monday, Callie Finn. You're back with me, and boy, do we have a lot to discuss talking about the Las Vegas Aces, a team that you cover, but ironically, that you were not covering yesterday, only because you were a little under the weather, so we hope you're feeling better now.
Thank you. Yes, we're feeling better.
Okay, good. But I know you were still tuned in nonetheless, even though you couldn't be there in person. And I don't know what it is about A'ja Wilson and the Connecticut Sun, but she likes to set records against them. And she set another one. Actually, I mean, yeah, she sets records all the time and breaks them, but like she made history, Callie. A'ja Wilson with not just like your ordinary double-double, okay? But she had 20 rebounds. And how many points was it again? I can't even keep up anymore.
32. 32
32.
points.
32 points and 20 rebounds. I had to like double check the box score over and over because I didn't get to watch that game initially in its entirety, but she's the first 30 and 20 game in WNBA history, Callie. And that seems like it shouldn't be. But you know what? There's not even that many NBA games like that. So that probably, it probably is correct. It is correct. And of course, it's none other than A'ja Wilson. 32 and 20, my goodness. I don't care what people say, Callie. In my opinion, she's still the best player in the world.
I mean, I agree. I feel like I keep on hearing all this talk when it comes to A'ja, this chatter about down near this, regression that. But I think it's a good reminder, like even when her shot's not falling, which was not the case tonight, but even when her shot's not falling, she often finds other ways to just become that much more dangerous. And you kind of mentioned like the way that she's just always like doing something crazy against the Connecticut Sun. Earlier this season, when she became the fastest player to 5,000 career points, I asked her about that. I'm like, what is this about? Like, I looked back and I'm like, I know that you played your first ever career game against the Sun, like as a rookie to just like debut as a WNBA player. And she was like, you know what, that might be part of it. Like here we are, here are the milestones. So the first 1,000 points against the Sun in the WNBA season, then fastest player in WNBA history. That's what I was just referencing when I talked to A'ja about this phenomenon. But then here we are again, revisiting it after this 30-point 20 rebound game. But yeah, after the 5,000 points, she was joking with me about kind of like her WNBA debut. And she was like, you know what, it's crazy because I feel like that was almost a turnover. You know what I mean? Like her first ever point. And she still remembers that. And she was just talking about how special it is to like be in, I don't know, like this a situation to still like make an impact year after year.
Right.
In a league with such talented players. So I think there is definitely something to the Connecticut Sun, A'ja Wilson phenomenon.
It's crazy. They must be like, I'm so sick of this lady setting records on us. Like, stop it.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I mean, I do think too, I was kind of talking about, like, I alluded to this with the whole, like, you can't really talk about this as a down year, I don't think, when it comes to A'ja, because I think even post game, Becky Hammon was talking about how, like, A'ja is, it's not a huge part of the way that they approach games to be like, hey, let's really crash the boards. Like, A'ja is more of rebounding as like an afterthought.
Yeah.
This year, though, they're making more of like a concerted effort for her to like, emphasize offensive rebounding. I think you saw that like, last night against the Connecticut Sun. So I think that like, more performances like this could be in the cards, like 20 rebounds. It's ridiculous, but it's not something that she's never done before. Like she had the a 2020 game against the Seattle Storm last year, and that is more common. 20 points, 20 rebounds. We've seen that about like 22 times in the WNBA. But like I just think this is something to like look at and just kind of see like where she's at and like the way that the Aces are using her, because that's really what it comes down to this year.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned, because I see a lot of Aces fans and the people who do not appreciate others saying Nafisa Collier is the best player, or inserting other people, or those who don't appreciate A'ja Wilson maybe not being in the MVP race in terms of the way she's been in the past, saying like, oh, but this is a down year for her. And I feel like we got to be a little honest. Like, A'ja didn't give us a 32 and 20 rebound performance in the first half of the year. And I'm not saying she has to. She's still been playing, amazing. But I know I'm someone who said Asia's having a down year for herself. And Callie, I've always said, like, that meant things like earlier in the season, there was a point where she wasn't even shooting 50% from the field. That is not A'ja-like. And so we can say, just like last year when there was a notable difference in when Nafisa Collier returned from the Olympics, even though she had been having an MVP season, something changed post-Olympics. Well, the Aces have won their last four. Mm-hmm. That's coming after, that horrific catastrophic loss that we briefly touched on last week, Callie, when they lost to the Minnesota Lynx in a 53-point blowout, the largest margin in a road win in WNBA history. And even before that, Callie, they had been playing better, right? And to me, there is a noticeable difference in A'ja Wilson's play, right? Like, I feel like she had the stats all year, but she is being aggressive. And it's not just A'ja. I don't want to just only call her out, because Jackie Young has been tremendous, you know?
Yes.
And I also want to give Jewel Lloyd some credit, because people came for Jewel, and they've changed their lineup. She's gone to the bench, and overall her numbers have been better. You know, whether it's, I don't know, less pressure in her head. She's still playing starter minutes. She's still playing a lot of minutes, but she has been better. And the Aces, they've won 4 in a row, and now they've moved up the standings, Callie. They're in a tie for 5th place with the Indiana Fever. I'm sure they're hating the fact that they lost the head-to-head tiebreaker with the Fever. So if they want to overtake the Fever, they will need to actually have a better record than them. But I mean, you know, people are now talking about potentially the Aces moving up into the 4th spot, Callie, because we talked about it last week. The standings are so close.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we're kind of ending up in a place that Becky Hammon kind of like foresaw. You know, like, she's been talking about this team as being better than what we've seen pretty consistently. And I remember after that loss to the Fever that you're alluding to, that kind of put them in this tie situation with the Fever, Becky was like, well, Callie, the point is that we just need to not have the same record as them when the regular season ends. And I mean, if they continue on this trajectory, that she's right, that really won't be an issue. And it doesn't seem like it should be. I mean, I keep joking about Becky, but if nothing else, we can count on her to give us a metaphor to understand the Aces season. And after that win over the Sun, she gave us 2. You know, she was talking about how the Aces can take a better punch this season. You know, when the Aces aren't playing defense, it's like they're just fighting with their hands down. You saw glimpses of that against the Connecticut Sun, which is why that was like more of a competitive game than it probably should have been, because there were like some defensive lapses.
Yep.
But the Aces were able to kind of like snap back into it, which is something that they've shown a little bit more consistently. Like, okay, they might let the wheels fall off, but they're going to smack those wheels back on, which is something you could not say about them earlier in the first half of the season. So that's one thing. And then another metaphor that she's used is that the Aces aren't really drowning in shallow water anymore. That's what she used to say. The shallow water being like a lot of basic things. Like, that's not hard stuff, right? You know, like rebound, box out, cut, set screens, like these very elementary things that like you talk about with, you know, basketball that you expect to see in professional basketball. Sometimes the Aces just weren't really doing. And so she's like, you know, we're not really drowning in shallow water anymore. Like, we've grabbed the nearest person and we've pulled ourselves up. So I think that those are 2 things that are going to make a huge difference. But like you said, that lineup change for Jewel and Kirsten Bell in the starting lineup has also made a huge difference.
It has.
It's been like a game changer. And I think it's like you said, it's not a huge, like, Jewel is still playing starter minutes. She's still playing a lot of time with the opening rotation.
Yeah.
But I do think, like you said, this is more of like a mental thing where she feels more freedom to take shots and create plays. Whereas with, like, you know, you start the game with A'ja, Jackie. These are people who, you know, like, a lot of the attention offensively is going towards them. And like they are the ones that have been doing the bulk of the scoring. And so I think that that's really made a difference. And then you have Kirsten Bell, who's just doing what she's supposed to do as a starter. Like, it's nothing crazy that's like jumping off the page every night. But it's like these little kind of like energy moments, like even against the Suns, like she had this big 3-pointer that kind of felt like kind of changed the momentum.
Yeah.
And she's good for that. Like that's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So that could really make all the difference. And then I just want to touch on one more thing about what you said about A'ja. She's not worried about whether or not anybody thinks that she should be in the MVP conversation.
Of course not.
This year, like, I asked her about it before that game against the Lynx, because they were kind of like on an upward trajectory before that game, and then it just all came crashing down. But what she said was, my resume speaks for itself. Like, I've worked hard to get it to that. And then she's like, you know, we have a great league with great players. So it's my job to make sure our system can combat that. That's what I'm focused on this year.
Right.
Her thing was just like, let's not be disrespectful about her resume. And I agree. I feel like when we have these like MVP talks and whatever.
I don't really feel like people are being disrespectful, though. I think fans are being fans. And I think they're like, I mean, to me, this is sort of like the LeBron thing in the NBA, where like, people just think LeBron should be MVP every year. His fans, even, you know, it's like, no, there are, there are other players who have great seasons, right? You know, I think it's premature to crown someone else as the best player, but those are all opinionated conversations. But I still hear people reference Asia as the best player in the world on broadcasts who are not like from the Las Vegas Aces broadcast. I still, like, they did a player poll, and I think Nafisa, the Athletic did a poll, and I think it was like a one vote difference between if Fee did have like one more vote over Asia, but you can see from their colleagues across the league, people view them as the best two players in the league. I think what is very clear is that Brianna Stewart has kind of fell to that third spot, you know? It was sort of always Asia and Stewie, and Nafisa Collier has emerged. I need to see some more from Nafisa Collier before I'm going to like crown her over Asia as the best player in the world. But to me, they are the best too. And I think these kinds of conversations are okay. And I think that, you know, I get it as someone who is a Steph Curry stan, and I go hard for him on the NBA side. I get it. But I personally don't feel like I'm seeing people disrespect Asia. Do you feel like you're seeing that?
I think what she was kind of alluding to, and I could be wrong, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but like what I've seen is sometimes people kind of like talk about her last year's MVP and be like, oh, well, you know, she whined about getting that fourth place MVP vote. She whined her way into the MVP the following year and things like that. I think that is disrespectful because she had a historic season last year.
But who's saying that?
Just so happened to.
But who's saying that?
I think that's more like fan chatter. But
that's what I'm
these
saying.
Players do hear it. These players do hear it. So that's all I was alluding to. I'm not saying, by no means am I saying that she's being like disrespected in the mainstream media. I don't really think that that's like a thing for anybody in this league. I mean, you know, like I could be wrong, but like that's not what I was alluding to at all. I'm talking about the fans.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, to me, I feel like when I've heard Asia say the things that you're referring to, I'm like, this is exactly what I meant when I said I thought Nafisa would like win MVP this year, like in my prediction. Because I said, I just think last year, I don't ever think Asia is putting individual accolades over team. So I never think that about her. But we know that she was really pissed off about that fourth place vote. Right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was just like an extra layer of motivation for her last season, right? And this year, the Aces did not make it to the finals. They didn't even make it there, much more like to have a chance to lose in it. They just didn't make it there. And I know that is something that she did not like. They wanted to three-peat. They expect to get to the finals every year. They want to win every year. And so I knew, without her saying it in the beginning of the season, I just felt like she was going to be very focused on like the team this year, you know? And again, I'm not suggesting that she wasn't last year, but I just thought that she would. And I think that's what we're seeing play out, Callie.
100%. I mean, I think a lot of the small things we're seeing, like when you see like small defensive improvements and stuff like that, we talked about this, I think, previously, but Asia's like in the locker room with a laptop in front of a whiteboard, going through the defense with the team and stuff. So like you said, it's very team focused this year. And I think that's probably going to be the story of the rest of the season as it pertains to Asia and the Aces.
Okay. Do you think they can get to 4 and get a home court
Yes.
series? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
I'm just reminding, it's going to be like, they do have to overtake the Fever, first of all. And so they cannot end with the same record. And so the Fever, they have some injury issues to watch, but they just signed Odyssey Sims. So we have to see, right?
Yeah.
But they also have to overtake one of, you know, Atlanta might get that 2 spot. They could, you know? And so you have the Liberty, and then you have the Mercury. Now, the Aces could control their destiny a lot here because they will see Atlanta again and they will see the Mercury again. And so they may have a chance to do it, but they can't really lose many more games, Callie, if it's going to happen, because those teams above them, I don't think are going to lose many more games. So we will see. Anyway.
Michelle.
Callie, this has always been fun talking about the Aces. I'm glad the tone of these conversations are starting to change about the Aces. But, you know, you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, the WNBA on NBC, so you can get all things WNBA.